Hello there. I am coming to you from my pajamas with no makeup, and I thought I would talk about silver linings. So, as you know, I have been sort of struggling with my health the past, well, my life, but with the recent developments the past year or so. And I have had a lot more physical repercussions from the mixed connective tissue disease. Sorry, the dogs, as always, are sort of rambling around. See, be good. So, I was thinking the other day about how some of my recent symptoms actually have had sort of positive repercussions on myself, my life. And it started with the Sjogren's. So Sjogren's syndrome is, sorry if I'm distracted by the dogs. They have not been getting along lately, and they got in a big fight the other night, and Chai got bit in the eye, and her eye was bleeding all over the place, and it was really sad. She seems okay, but they are still not getting along, so I kind of have to keep an eye on them. Anyway, Sjogren's syndrome, what it does is it affects the mucus creating glands, like for saliva and your tear ducts and all that. And so what that means practically is that you have a dry mouth, dry eyes, dry mouth kind of thing. And it has made it so that I am thirsty, and I drink a lot more water than I ever have in my whole life. If you know me, you know that I hate water. I don't hate water. I just don't enjoy it. In general, have never been thirsty. Up until now, I've never had like a dry mouth. I've never wanted something to drink. So if I drink something, it's usually because it tastes good, or I know I'm supposed to be drinking it. So I normally would just get most of my hydration from fresh vegetables and fruit, and then I would drink like tea, and I would force myself to drink water, but it wouldn't be very often. And now I drink a lot of water. I have gone through several bottles of water at work throughout the day, and then I get home and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to drink some more water. And Joel and I always have those flavor shot things. You know, it's like Kool-Aid mix, sugar-free type thing you squirt in the water. And I used to have that when we'd have a drink. And now it's like I can't even be bothered with it. I just go straight for the plain water. And, I don't enjoy having a dry mouth or dry eyes. It is uncomfortable. But I am sort of grateful that it is making me drink more water, because I have tried to drink more water for years and years and years. And I just can't bring myself to do it because I never want it. And now can't stop drinking it. So it's a silver lining, it's like a weird perk that has been placed upon me with the burden of the ailment. At least there's a silver lining. So thinking about that made me think that I could probably find a silver lining in a lot of my other symptoms. So I made a little note. Of course I did. I'm the queen of notes. You should see me when I go to the doctor. I don't know if they like it or hate it. Some have said that they like it, but some of them are like, oh God, here she comes with her notes. But they ask me like about symptoms or if things are better or worse or if things have changed. And I'm like, hold on, I made notes. So I do have my notes. So the Sjogren's was the first. The Raynaud's. The Raynaud's, as you might know from even my last video, it is when the blood vessels in your fingers and toes, sometimes nose, constrict and stops the blood flow. And so your fingers and your toes will turn a bright, bright, bright white from lack of blood flow. And then they will turn purple, and then they will turn red. But while it's happening, it's very, very uncomfortable. It sort of feels like, you know, if you touch something that's so incredibly cold that it feels like it's burning you, or you touch something so hot that it feels cold, like you can't tell, you just know that it's so extreme that like you want to pull your hand away, you know, but you don't really know why. That's what it feels like. It feels like it's burning, but it's not necessarily hot. It just feels like tingling, that sort of pins and needles, like numbness feeling, but very uncomfortable. It is painful, but I don't think it's like the most painful thing. Like I would call it a lot more uncomfortable than painful, but it sucks. Anyway, I think the silver lining for me for the Raynaud's is that this winter it's been so bad and I'm supposed to stay out of the cold, and it has been so cold. So this winter I've pretty much stayed inside when it has snowed or when it is really bad weather, which means I haven't had to shovel this winter. And to me, that is a big perk. That's a big silver lining because I hate snow. I hate the cold already, and I really hate shoveling. So not having to shovel, not having to go out in the snow is primo. So that's my silver lining for the Raynaud's disease. And then my hands. So my hands in general have been probably my number one complaint for the past like 6 months. It's the combination of the Raynaud's plus the inflammation is causing my carpal tunnel to go into crazy overdrive. The carpal tunnel is really bad. I've had carpal tunnel syndrome since I was, I think, 14. I was diagnosed with it at 14, and it was nothing more than a nuisance back then, up until now. And now it's like severe. It is bad. So that plus rheumatoid arthritis and the lupus, the inflammation from the lupus. So everything is sort of settling in my hands all at the same time, and they're like feeding off of each other. So my hands are extremely painful and numb. I know that doesn't make sense to be painful and numb at the same time, but if you felt any sort of like nerve pain, like a carpal tunnel, or if you've ever had like really bad pins and needles in your legs or your feet, you know that that's what I mean by numbness. It's like that tingling, like electrocution type feeling in your hands. Yeah, so that's what I mean by numbness. I don't mean like I feel nothing. I mean it like, it's a feeling on its own. So here comes Chai, her jingly collar. So the silver lining for the hands, is that it's sort of forced me to be a lot more creative, um, and with doing everyday tasks. And that means like when I'm doing my makeup, I have to often switch hands. And I have always been very useless with my left hand. I am very much a righty, and I do everything with my right hand. And now I am forced to hold things and do things with my left hand, and then I'll swap back and forth. I even the other day was writing with my left hand, which I've never been able to do before. It was a struggle, but it worked. I did it, and I thought it was kind of cool that it's forcing me to do these things with my other hand, which I never would have done before. And also be creative in the ways that I can do a lot more things with voice command on my phone, on my computer, on the TV, and then just asking for help. And that's sort of a big theme with a lot of my things. The silver lining is like teaching me to ask for help when I need it, when I probably should have been asking for help all along, but I was always too stubborn. So, yeah. The next thing would be my knees. My knees have always been really bad since I was very little. And they were always a lot more of an excuse. Just like, I don't know how to explain that. When I was, I think, 10 to 12, I don't remember exactly what age, I think 10, in school, my knees, in gym class, my knees would always give out if I would, in gym class, we'd have to do like a warm-up run. We'd run like 4 laps around the gym floor, and second lap, every time, my knees would give out and I would fall. And then I'd be sitting out the rest of the class. And so I had to go to the doctor. Doctor said I had patellofemoral syndrome, which meant that my kneecaps were sliding out of place, and that would cause, my knees to buckle and I would fall. And, I know now, years later, I knew that it was because of the ehlers-danlos syndrome. But back then, they also diagnosed me with osteoarthritis in my knees, which is, again, because of the ehlers-danlos. But at the time, it was still pretty rare for a 10-year-old to have osteoarthritis, because osteoarthritis is the kind that you get from, wear and tear. So you get it after a lot of sports injuries or just over time as you age. And I was 10, so. But, I immediately got a doctor's note to get me out of gym class for pretty much forever. And so as a young and fat girl, getting out of gym class was like premium. I mean, what a pass. So, I learned that like my knees were a good excuse. They were a good reason to get out of things I didn't want to do. And so back then that was the silver lining. And, I grew out of that. I quickly wished that I had knees that worked well. Because as I got older, I actually wanted to do things that were physical. And instead I just got heavier and heavier because I didn't think I could, or I was told that I shouldn't. So that's the story for another time. Sorry about that. What I'm trying to say is, nowadays, I consider the silver lining for the knees to be that recently they had gotten so bad that I needed to use a cane. And use much heavier duty knee braces. And I was pretty embarrassed about it, going out in public with the braces on, especially going out in public using a cane, or using my handicap pass in my car. And I would say that I have mostly gotten over that, because when it comes to necessity, you do stop caring that people see you with a cane. My need to go to the store to pick up my prescriptions was more important than seeing someone, or someone seeing me use a handicap placard to park in the handicap spot and use my cane to go into the store. So for me, a silver lining was sort of getting to the point where I didn't care what other people thought of my AIDS. So silver lining. Sorry, that was like a long ramble to get to that very small thing, but you should be used to this by now. The fatigue, extreme fatigue, which is what I am dealing with today. The silver lining for that is sort of funny, is that I have been able to sleep on my back. And I have not slept on my back or been able to sleep on my back ever. I mean, maybe when I was a baby, but I don't know. I'd have to ask my mom. But ever since I was a very small child, as far back as I remember, I can only sleep on my stomach. And it was so bad that back in high school, I was in the hospital. About a week, 2 weeks, I don't remember. But I was there multiple nights. And it was bad because I had all these IVs in. So I had to lay on my back. And if I flipped over, the IVs would pull out, and that was bad. So I was forbidden to lay on my stomach. And I could not sleep. And I did not sleep the entire time in the hospital for over a week because I couldn't sleep. And I was so tired. It didn't matter how tired I got. I could not sleep on my back or my side or anything. I still attribute that to just being such a control freak that even my body is like, no, I need to sleep in the way that I want to sleep. You can't tell me otherwise. It's so bad. But recently, I'm just so exhausted, and my body is so exhausted that I've been able to sleep on my back. And it's nice. It's just nice to have that option, because sometimes sleeping on your stomach, hurts your neck, and it'll hurt my hips sometimes. So it's kind of cool. It's a silver lining. I have had recently small bouts of a loss of appetite. Luckily not nausea, just not hungry or don't really want to eat. And of course that's good for me because it helps me with my weight loss and helps me from eating when I don't need to eat. I'm definitely not concerned about this. I think I already talked about this in a video. I am still eating too much. So, sorry, my mouth is getting dry. I don't have any water in here. So yeah, silver lining, weight loss. This one is what they call the lupus itch, which is basically just I have this consistent itch in the middle of my back. It's not it's like a neuropathy thing, like a nerve thing. It's not from dry skin or irritant or anything. It's just this insane itch, and then I gotta rub my back on doorway like a bear. um, but the silver lining there is that even though it's not from dry skin, I've been trying to stay really moisturized. And so I've been putting lotion on my back every day, and it's pretty nice. It's like keeping me hydrated. So silver lining, is better skin moisturization. And then this is sort of the overall silver lining to being sick or having a flare up or having a new diagnosis, however you want to phrase it, is that it's definitely forced me to have like a priority shift. I love my work. I love where I work and the people I work with and the work that I work on. But it has always been my priority. I would give up my weekends, evenings, mornings, all my time I would give up if I needed to work. And I just thought that it was the only thing I really had to offer, and I don't have kids. So it's sort of like work is supposed to be my priority, and it has always been. And being sick has really changed that, because there are days often now that I can't work, that I physically can't go to the office, or mentally I can't work on any work. And, it's just not my priority anymore. I am my priority now. And although that pains me to say, and like I feel like it changes a lot about who I am and like how I've been living for past almost 20 years that I have been working the same job, it doesn't feel good. It does feel, I feel guilty, and I feel like, I'm heading towards failure because work is no longer my priority. But logically, I also know that it is sort of a silver lining. People have told me for years that I need to not focus on work as much, and I need to focus on living my life and, work-life balance and all that stuff. And this is really forcing me to do that. All right, come on, dog. I'm so sorry. Their little tapping, come on, is so annoying. I know that. Hi, buddy. Hi. Okay. So, that's how I feel that I am being forced into caring about my health and caring more about how I spend my time and how what I put my energy into. And it is something that had to be done anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter what's forcing me to do it. But I do think it's sort of a silver lining that I am going to embrace. I am going to keep working as hard as I possibly can at my job, but I also now need to be my own priority and worry about work second, because I'm not really doing them any favors if I run myself down, and if I'm not able to do my work at all, then it's going to be bad for me and my health and also my work. So so I'm going to say that being sick in general is has its own silver lining, in that it is teaching me to change my priorities and focus on myself a little bit more. So I hope this was even remotely interesting. And I hope that it makes you think a little bit about thinking about the silver lining on the dark clouds that are circling over you. Because, I'm not saying that it's all happiness and rainbows. But I think that if we don't try to find the good things, we're going to very quickly be overwhelmed by the bad things. And nobody wants that. It's not good for anybody to only think about how bad it is. We got to think a little bit about the good stuff too. So anyway, I had fun talking with you, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Bye.